Hello, we may ask to everyone to please stand for the national anthem performed by Quavo from the Migos. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? The dawn is so early. What's so proudly we at the twilight last gleaming. Look at the ice on burn stripes and bright stars through the perilous or the red bars we was so gallantly streaming so gallantly, and the rockets, red glare, the bomb bursting, in air, gave proof, they gave it the proof through the night that a flag was still there. No way, no, say does that star spangled banner away, or the land of the free and the home of the
Hey, everybody,
Let's give it
what
another
is
round
up?
of applause for Quavo
Now
singing
you
the
be
national anthem.
back again with yet another stream, and today we're going to be covering the midterm elections. Now, I'm not going to be here for the whole time because I don't know if this is going to be election day or election season or election month or whatever it is. Let's see. I don't know why I can't hear you. I literally have the TTS on, but what's up, official Mike? Let's see. Got influenza.
Mike.
Oh, there we go. Now it's working. What is up with the TTS though? That's wild.
Got influenza, how you doing?
I am doing all right. I'm sorry that you have the flu though. Although maybe that gets you like time off school.
Official Mike. Said in the chat.
No, man.
Elections are a snooze fest.
No, man. I mean, now of course it's different for me because I'm kind of into politics. So of course I'm going to be more excited than the average person. But I do enjoy following politics a lot. I think politics is very interesting, and also it's just important to stay current and up to date with everything that's going on in the country that you live in. So let's see. Hold on, I kind of want to. Let me dig in here. So okay, so let's take a look at this.
Said in the chat.
Oh, you work during it?
I still work during it.
Oh, okay.
Official Mike. Said in the chat. And I have reading week.
I honestly
Official
don't.
Mike.
I don't know what reading week is.
Said in the chat. I choose career over my health.
Bad choice. Bad choice. It's honestly a pretty bad choice. All right. Now, one thing that's interesting is that we are pretty much everyone is kind of expecting at least the GOP to make some sort of gains. I believe the current expectation is that let me pull this up here because
Official
538 has their own statistics.
I mean, my prime minister is a pretty boy narcissist and yours has dementia.
Where do you live? Prime Minister? Is that Britain? Oh!
Official Mike.
There's that dude.
In the chat.
It's funny.
I choose career over my health like a true American.
There we go. So are you an American with a prime minister? I'm just a little bit confused here. Now, but I do want to get to this election coverage though, because we have a lot of things going on and a lot of things that have happened. Let's see. We had some interesting things happen. I think that the stuff that was going on with those ballot machines is kind of interesting. Carrie Lake requested some sort of extension of the election time in order to allow her people to vote, because so basically the machines that were supposed to count all the votes they basically got messed up for at least 2 hours,
I live in
and
a
they
land
wouldn't
of Canada.
properly
I gotta raise a family
count up
and
all the
hopefully
votes.
be able to retire
And so
in
after
life.
a couple, like an hour, 2-3 hours or whatever, they finally figured out that the issue was printer settings. So they put in all the printer settings correctly, and now the machine is working. But now we have tons and tons and tons of people in line trying to vote, and Carrie Lake is trying to extend the time so that her people can still vote, because technically they're going to be late if the time is not extended, I believe. Let me pull this up here, because I do. Let's see, where's 529's or 538's initial predictions? Did they pull those? Okay, hold on. Okay, so 538. Let's see. Do they not have a? They don't have a prediction map. Okay, never mind. Because I do like looking at the prediction maps, but they don't have. They don't have one, do they? Yeah, no, they don't have one. All right, so let's go ahead and just look at what's happening now. We can take a look at all of the races that have been called, and then we can get caught up with everything else. Hold on, let's see. Coding overloaded. All right. Let's take a look at this. So this here is the Senate. Now we have had some results in, but we still don't have any any wins or losses yet, as far as kind of overturning what the current balance of the Senate is.
Official Mike said in the chat, "I'm banned from Texas for performing the song. I should have been aborted."
What? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you need some help or something. or you're going to great lengths for a joke. In any case, we have a few calls here in the Senate. So let's see. For the Senate in Vermont, Welch beat Malloy pretty badly. The Democratic wins. There aren't that many Democratic wins, so let's breeze through those pretty quickly.
Sleep, but no newbie is too entertaining for me to sleep.
Nice. I'll try to keep you awake. We'll see what happens. I'll do my best. Let's see. So in New York, we also have Chuck Schumer. He is winning. Surprise. Chuck Schumer wins there.
Said in the chat.
Now, for all of the Republican wins, because we're getting a lot of W's right now for the GOP. We'll see how things turn out in the end, but right now we have a lot of wins for the GOP. South Carolina, Tim Scott won that Senate race. In Florida, Marco Rubio won that Senate race. Alabama, Britt beat Boyd. In Kentucky, we got Paul winning with 56% of the vote and 47% reporting. Indiana, Tim Young. I don't know if it's Tim Young. I'm just Young beat McDermott, so another GOP win there.
Prediction: nobody wins.
Hoven won in North Dakota, beating Christensen. Got Thune beating Bangs. In South Dakota, in Kansas, we have Moran beating Holland, and in Oklahoma we have Langford beating Oklahoma. So that's all of the current Senate races, the races that have been called.
In Kentucky, I voted for fried chicken.
I can't say that I blame you, to be honest. I mean, I probably would have too if I didn't know anything about politics. Now, this is kind of looking more like a. I mean, I don't know. This is just a lot of red here. I mean, this is kind of crazy. Okay, we've got all of these races, and I can't break down all of these, but I think it's just interesting to note how many, of these red House seats the GOP has won. Looking at all of these results, really, it's been hard to find Democratic wins, which is kind of exciting. Now, of course, we do have some races that have yet to be called. Texas District 23 with 48% of the vote. Reporting, it's kind of close. It's 54 to 43 right now. And we've got other places that they're only reporting 1-2% right now. We've got the Colorado District 3 race, which is neck and neck with 52% to 48%. So not all is said and done yet, but there is a whole lot of red on this map already. Now, take a look at the governor's races, which people have been, I think, paying a little bit more attention to. Not as many of those, but we're still seeing a lot of GOP wins. Now, one thing that's interesting is the Republicans have lost one seat. Let's see, which seat is that got lost there? Is that see? I'm not seeing that. It could be the Massachusetts seat. I believe it could be the Massachusetts seat. But in any case, let's just go through all the governor's races. We have Scott beating Siegel in Vermont. We have Sununu beating Sherman in New Hampshire. In Ohio, we have DeWine beating Whaley 60-40. In let's see. I completely forgot the one.
Said in the chat.
Okay, we got McMaster.
Canadian, I pay attention to hockey and poutine and maple syrup.
McMaster won is projected to have won in South Carolina, beating Cunningham. In Florida, we've got DeSantis, who has beat Christ. I'm honestly really surprised that Christ got 40% of the vote in Florida. That is pretty surprising there. Alabama got Ivy beating Flowers. That's kind of early, but still not surprised that the GOP
official Mike
GOP candidate is winning here.
Chat.
We got Lee beating Martin in Tennessee.
newbie.
We've got Sarah Huckabee Sanders beating Jones. Now that one's interesting, considering that Sarah Huckabee Sanders I don't think has much political experience beyond being a short-time spokesperson for President Trump. So that was an interesting win for her. Now for the three Democratic wins, we have Massachusetts victory there. We've got the Rhode Island victory there, and we have the Colorado victory. Let's see. I'm going to get to some of these chats here. Let's see here. Hopefully, prediction: nobody wins. I think we're gonna get some victories. I think it'd be a lot to say that nobody wins. I think that we did see the GOP lose one governor's seat.
Mike.
But I think in the end, this is going to be a good night for the Republicans. And that's pretty much what everyone is expecting. Utah's Republican because shroom Christians? No, I'm pretty sure Utah's Republican because of Mormons, right? I think that sounds about right. Speaking of Utah, though, we don't have any reported results from Utah yet. Now, granted, it makes sense that we don't have any totals from any of these states because they're in the Pacific time zone. Now, where I am right now, it's Eastern time, so it's 9:31. One easy way to convert is just subtract by 3. So where they are, it's going to be like 6:30. So we probably have 30 minutes until they tally all their votes. A lot of states are closing their polls at 7 p.m. So we do have that going on. Mormons are shroom Christians. Their whole religion is founded on shrooms. That makes sense. That makes so much more sense. That makes complete sense for everything except for the racism. Other than that, that explains everything about Mormonism in relation to to Christianity.
Official Mike.
It's in the chat. 7:32.
It's 7:32.
Is that that's not Central Time? Is that like Mountain Time? Because I know that's not Pacific Time. I know it's not Central Time because Central Time is going to be like 8:32. So not 100% sure on that. Now there are a lot of interesting stories that kind of broke and. One thing that's been really fascinating to follow is this news crawl that NBC News has put together. So NBC News on their website has had this thing that kind of shows you everything that's happening with these elections. We have, some things that are just kind of like mini articles, what I don't find particularly interesting, but it's also been a really easy way to track any
Official
sort
Mike
of
Mike
potential,
said in the
election
chat,
irregularities, which surprisingly,
genders
we
are
actually
there?
haven't seen too many of those. We've seen a handful. We've seen some ballot issues, which I guess we could talk about later if you guys want to. But those only occurred, I think, at like maybe 2 or 3 states. Everything else seems to be running like clockwork. So it's, it's not seeming like this is going to be an election, a midterm season rife with, election issues. We'll see as the night goes on, but at the moment, that's not what it's looking like. So
Official Mike
let's see here.
Said in the chat,
if we go farther
my
down,
favorite is all the scandals the senators and governors get into.
I mean, they do get into some scandals sometimes. Let's see here. Official Mike says, how many genders are there? I mean, the easy answer is 2. It's like the easiest way to explain it without getting into some crazy pontification and doing some sort of like mental gymnastics, which I certainly could do, but I do want to focus on the elections right here. Now, speaking of which, we do have this little note from
Official
NBC
Mike
News saying, half of voters say values on sexuality and gender are changing for the worse.
Are pending.
Now, that's interesting. Let's see what they have to say. The 2022 midterm election campaign took place amid debates over the status of transgender athletes in organized sports and the discussion of sexual orientation and gender identity in the classroom. By a wide margin, voters said society's values on these issues were changing in a negative way. The NBC News exit poll found. That's fascinating. Half of voters said society's values on gender and sexual orientation identity are changing for the worse, while 26% said they were changing for the better. There's a deep generational divide on this question. Older Americans overwhelmingly disapprove of the changes, but those under 30 say values are changing for the better. The polls found. The gap grows even wider among voters under 25 who approve of the direction of change on sexuality and gender by 54% to 23%. There's some interesting things about that, some things that are surprising, some things that are unsurprising. I think the thing that's most surprising to me is that, it says among voters who are under 25 years old, they say that the direction of changes on sexuality and gender is 54%. I'm really surprised that number is actually that low. I would expect maybe 65, 70, something around there. That's kind of closer to what I would expect to see. But it's interesting that overall, people seem to be saying that things are getting worse. Half of voters say values on sexuality and gender are changing for the worse. I'm not entirely surprised by that, and I think that as time goes on, as we see some more integration with trans individuals into gendered spaces, as those ramifications make themselves known, I do think that we're going to see some shifts in attitude as far as that, and people are really going to be put to the test to see how comfortable they are with trans athletes in
my gender identity is a lizard
in certain gendered sports and things like that. It'll be interesting to see how things change, because it is possible with a lot of the left's social progress that they have convinced people to move to be more progressive and to accept more of these things that would stereotypically be viewed as radical positions. But I do think it is very possible and potentially probable that in reality, a lot of society is sort of just acquiescing, but not really conforming to a lot of these positions. They're just sort of abiding by them. And so if things progress far enough, society may, general consensus might just swing and be like, nah, fam, we were never about this life from the beginning. So it'll be interesting to see if that is something that's accurate or something that holds, or whether or not attitudes change within the generation, because it's expected. And when you go from one generation to another, the attitudes change, right? So it makes sense that the older generation is not going to be as progressive as the younger generation. But one thing that it'll be interesting to see is whether or not this generation, the one I'm in, so Gen Z, stays as progressive as we are, or if we become more progressive or less progressive. I'm really, really interested in seeing how that goes. But that'll take years to to see. I'm kind of looking around to see how people are doing and what attitudes are like, but I think that's going to be something very, very fascinating to see. Let's see here. My answer is who cares? My gender identity is a lizard. That part of it too is like when we have so many people that don't care, but then people keep on pushing and pushing, and then people are like, even people who like don't care are weirded out. That'll be something interesting too, because the people who don't care, their voices are not being made known in these types of polls. So that'll be really interesting. Okay. Now we have something, not entirely surprising. An NBC News exit poll is stating that Pennsylvania voters are concerned about Oz's residency and Fetterman's health. It's interesting. So more than half of Pennsylvania voters said the Republican man Oz has not lived in state long enough to represent Pennsylvania effectively. That's a fair point. It's a fair point. Now let's see here. Now look at this poll here that says that do you think John Fetterman is in good enough health to represent the state effectively in the U.S. Senate? Now, I'm surprised at how split this is, to be honest. Did you guys watch the debate? Fetterman had so many flubs. It was kind of hard to come away with the fact with the conclusion that, oh, this dude is competent. This dude has all his brains inside of his head. that was just a hard debate to watch in certain respects. So looking at this poll here, though, it's really interesting. I wonder how many people actually watched the debate. I think this might tell the tale, because 50% are saying that they think that John Fetterman is in good enough health to represent the state effectively in the U.S. Senate, while 47% are saying no, and then 3% had no answer. I think that's very, very interesting. But I think over time, as people see more of Fetterman, their positions might change, right? And, before that debate, Fetterman might have had a higher, total there of, yeses in comparison to the no's. We'll see how things go, but it's kind of late to change your mind now. And, pretty much everyone has, let's see here. Pretty much everyone has already cast their ballot. One thing that's kind of interesting is, I don't know if I covered this on my stream when the story broke. I think I might have. Matt Gaetz won re-election. Now this is fascinating because Gaetz had been, it says here, Gaetz has been the subject of a Department of Justice child sex trafficking investigation, which seems to have solved. Several attorneys involved in the case said last month he is denying any wrongdoing. That's interesting that did not tank him at all. I'm not entirely surprised because, the story seemed a little, not just strange, but there seemed to be some shady things about it, but also the lack of information. So in the absence of information, people can take things in any sort of direction. So I found that one in particular to be very interesting. So my mind said I have my midterms already. 3 of the grades are pending. Well, we'll see with the grades that the political parties get here. One thing that's fascinating about how all these things shake out is while these are local races, in large part, these races kind of serve as sort of almost like report cards for the political parties of how they've done. Now, a lot of it is just what's it called? A report card for Joe Biden, because a lot of elections nowadays are becoming referendum elections. So it's more like, what do you think of the current regime, and not as much as what do you think about your local candidate. Although what the local candidates do matters extremely, matters a lot. So I don't think you can completely discount it, but it's something to take in mind that what's going on nationally really affects what's happening in these states on a micro level. Let's see here. Oh, this is interesting. 5 minutes ago, Florida Democrat Al Lawson becomes first House incumbent to lose in a 2022 general election. That's interesting from a couple ways. First of all, I don't think that Florida would have been the first place that we would have found the first House incumbent loss. Second of all, I think does that bring us to the first House, and that may bring us to one of the few House victories that we've seen so far, decisive ones of the GOP trouncing a Democratic candidate there. So that's kind of interesting, especially considering the fact that Florida, we did see that surprisingly high turnout for Crist, getting 40% of the vote, despite the fact that, Florida is known for being, a red state. And then even here, if you look at this, Demings got like 41% of the vote. So there does seem to be some sort of strong, current of strong, almost like purple current going on in Florida. Not enough to turn the state red, and not enough to keep Al Lawson from losing his incumbency in his his incumbent House seat. But it is certainly there, and it's something that the state of Florida and the GOP in Florida, they're going to have to pay attention to this. And they can't ignore the fact that the state seems to be turning even more blue, or kind of like moving it back towards being purple, because I believe it's always been purple. DeSantis kind of brought it to red, and then also I think a lot of Democratic rhetoric speaking in favor of socialism and communism, combined with the large immigrant population there who was just fled socialism and communism, sort of has helped the GOP, but I don't think it's looking like it's not going to be enough to buoy the GOP long term in Florida. Now, maybe part of that is also a lot of Democrats are leaving California and moving to Florida, so that could be part of it too. We see something similar happening in Texas, where we see a lot of Democrats moving over to Texas. So there could be a lot of that at play as well. It's very interesting phenomenon. That'll be
said in the chat. I zoned out.
No, I'm not entirely surprised. I love politics. I nerd out, GOP? So it makes. What's the GOP? Do you live in America? Okay, the GOP is the Republican Party. I think GOP stands for Grand Old Party. I don't know why they called it the Grand Old Party, man, but that's what it stands for. So that's what the GOP is.
Mike said in the chat, Florida just lost of old folks dying.
I don't know. Florida is not just a lot of old folks dying. Florida is alligators, fresh and fit, and the girls that they like to be promiscuous with. There's more to Florida than that. But
Mike.
Florida is not just a lot of old folks dying. I don't know where you got that
Canadian.
From. Old folks. I don't know where old folks dying is, honestly. Okay. You said that you're Canadian. Okay. I have some Canadian viewers. It's nice to see the Canadian viewers going strong there.
Official Mike said in the chat.
Let's see.
NDR Uggs.
I don't know. I think maybe Oregon might be a bigger stronghold for that. But you're not entirely wrong.
Official Mike said in the chat.
Dancing with alligators
and dancing with alligators and Florida men.
Where the heck are you getting this from? I'm a little bit confused here. Okay, we have some history being made. This is rather exciting on one end, and a little bit disappointing on another, but it's still exciting nonetheless. Wes Moore has been elected as Maryland's first black governor. He's a Democratic candidate. He's flipped the governor's seat from Republican to Democrat. So it's interesting. He's an author and a former nonprofit executive. Yeah, he defeated Dan Cox, who
said
he was a state.
I saw a video of a guy
Here's something interesting.
With an alligator.
So NBC News is citing Cox as a 2020 election denier who was backed by President Donald Trump. So this is a guy who's very strongly,
said in the chat, what are your thoughts on Kenneth Copeland?
And he got beat. He got beat. So this race proves that GOP support for Donald Trump is not going to be completely unwavering. Now, there could be many factors to this. One thing I think that can't be ignored is the fact that, the GOP is kind of split 50-50 between liking Trump and not liking Trump. For obvious
Said in the
reasons.
chat.
Now, another thing too, I was
NBC
watching
News citing
Tim
Cox.
Pool's coverage earlier today, and one of the guests that he had on, his name was Luke from We Are Change, I believe, made a really interesting point, which is
Mike.
Donald Trump has been like
Said
kind
in
of
the
like
chat.
throwing these little
they like
jabs
big
at
ones or little
Ron
ones?
DeSantis. He at one point called him Ron DeSanctimonious, I believe. At least that's what Luke had said. And that may split the GOP, right? You know, if the kinds of, you know, Republicans who had voted for the, who had voted for the previous Republican governor in Maryland, you know, were supporters of, say, Ron DeSantis and his, you know, calmer, more measured and reasonable, way of speaking. And then they see Donald Trump kind of railing on the guy that they are kind of a fan of, and then supporting the GOP local candidate. That may have some sort of influence over that as well.
My girlfriend says my cock
I
is
don't
a
know.
giant, so I don't know
Let's
if
see.
NBC will like it.
It took me too long to understand what you were referencing. Okay, man, okay.
Official Mike. Said in
That's
the
the
chat.
guy's name. I can't do anything
you guys
about
take Quebec?
that. Look,
Official
that's his
Mike.
name.
Said in the
I mean,
chat.
what am I gonna call him?
We
Dan?
don't like him.
I'm gonna say his full name. Oh my goodness. What are your thoughts on wait, hold on. Okay, hold on. Official Mike says, what are your thoughts on Kenneth Copeland? I blow on you. No, Kenneth Copeland is kind of a cartoonish character. Not a big fan of him. But I think unfortunately, you know, he's a false teacher, and a lot of people are duped by him. Still, a lot of things are just extra biblical. But he's charismatic, you know, both when it comes to rhetorical and also theological. But when it comes to like rhetoric, he's very charismatic, and so that makes him very convincing to a lot of people. But you know, he's just not, his teaching is just not accurate. So it's kind of unfortunate, but it's the way that it is. I'm just not a fan of him. I don't know if you're a fan of him, but you know. You guys take Quebec? We don't like him. What's wrong with Quebec? I don't know what's going on with Quebec. I mean, I'm just following.
He said Donald Trump is his daddy.
Wait, Quebec said that Donald Trump.
Mike.
I'm so confused.
Said in the chat. Yet he's older than Trump.
Wait, who are you talking about? Quebec? I'm a little bit confused here. Okay, here's something very interesting. Maricopa County judge denies Republican effort to extend voting hours after secure voting boxes put to use. Maricopa County Superior Judge Timothy Ryan denied an emergency request from the Republican National Committee on Tuesday to extend voting hours after the county experienced tabulation issues at about 20% of polling locations. Motion sought to keep polling places open 3 extra hours. The ruling came just as polls closed in Arizona. Hearing concludes, the court rules against Tierra request despite admitted problems with voting in Maricopa County and multiple factual declarations from voters affected by bad instructions and malfunctioning equipment at over 25% of polling places in Maricopa County. Attorney Harmeet K. Dillingham, who represented the RNC, tweeted after the hearing ended. The county spent hours Tuesday trying to fix what was initially described as a hiccup with tabulation machines. The machines were not misreading ballots, but rather were not accepting ballots, but all voters could still cast ballots and drop them in a secure box to be counted later. Maricopa, the fourth largest county. Okay, so we've got more stuff about that. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. I think that the judge denied the emergency request. Now, I would like to know what the rationale for this was, because I'm not seeing much of a rationale in this response here. Now, granted, this is from a representative of the RNC, so it's not the judge himself, but I think it kind of makes sense that one could argue that these the voting should be extended for the period of time in which these boxes were down. 3 hours kind of sounds a lot like the downtime of these ballot boxes. However, I did hear Carrie Lake say and let me pull this up here just to make sure that I'm being accurate, but I believe I heard Kari Lake say that, so long as you were already in line, you are still forced to, they're kind of still forced to allow you to vote. Let me see if I can pull that up here real quick. Let's see here. Okay, here it is. I saw this air on Tim Pool's broadcast today. Here is Kari Lake's statement on this.
Arizona, stay in line. If you are lined up ready to vote and the polls close, they gotta let you vote. So do not get out of line until you cast that ballot. That ballot is your voice, and you must vote tonight. We need a red tsunami in Arizona. We'll talk to you later.
Now, one thing that's really interesting is, I don't know how accurate this is. I don't know. Some of these reactions. Even though I'm a fan, that's a funny reaction, even though I'm a fan of Kari Lake. But it's interesting. I don't know too much about Kari Lake. I think that, I've heard some Democrat outlets say enough negative things about her that I'm a fan. However, I think that she has enough charisma to where even if she loses this race, she has a path to having a semi-successful presidential candidacy, which I wouldn't be shocked if is something that she would gun for. So that's kind of interesting. I do hope that all of her supporters are allowed to vote because, not only am I a Republican, but I think it's pretty unfortunate that, they were just denied the ability to vote because of the glitch. These are things that really they should have tested. It turned out, I don't see it here, but it turned out it was due to a printer setting issue. Here it is. Okay, this happened at 5:30 p.m. today. Solution found for malfunctioning machines in Maricopa County. Election officials in Maricopa County say they now have a fix for the dozen of vote tabulation machines that aren't accepting ballots. Change the printer settings. The apparently simple solution has worked at 17 locations. Technicians deployed at other sites were attempting to resolve the issue Tuesday afternoon, hours after problems were first reported at about 60 polling centers. So it was all a very simple, printer setting issue that could have easily been avoided had they done the proper testing. I don't know why they didn't do the proper testing, but they didn't. So let's see. Do we have any? Let's see here. Do we have any news? Okay, we have some news. 15 minutes ago, Republican newcomer Corey Mills won an open house seat in Florida. Now, this is a seat that was previously held by Democratic Representative Stephen Murphy. So we have another seat that's kind of flipping to the GOP side. So that is, let's see here, that is rather interesting. I'm still not seeing too much of an indication that, control has swayed from one party to the other. Now, maybe these charts are just kind of betraying me. All that I am seeing is that in the, let's see, what is this? In the governor's races,
6'0" or taller?
In the governor's races, let's see, the Democrats have gained 2 seats and the Republicans have lost 2 seats. That's all that I'm seeing here. See, technical errors just hit the computer. No, that usually makes things worse. Would you date a girl 6'0" or taller? Yeah. What a question to ask during election coverage. And it's such a short answer. It was like, yes. Height is by no means a disqualifier. Let's see. Any more news? Wow. This is fascinating. Okay. NBC News has done an exit poll and found that 2/3 of voters don't want Joe Biden to run again. I'm surprised. But a majority of Democrats do. This is really interesting. 68% of voters prefer Biden not to run again,
Official Mike
compared
Mike
to 29%
said
who
in the chat,
would like to see him run.
I hate
That's
American
really
politics.
interesting.
I wish it was televised on Comedy
Let's see.
Central.
Among our midterm voters, self-identified as Democrats, 57% wanted to see Biden run again. That is that. I mean, it's nice for him, I guess, that he has the majority there with 57%, but that's pretty low for majority. That's about as low as it gets for a majority. Like, that's like 7% away from not being a majority at all. So, it's still not particularly encouraging, especially considering that this is the halfway point. He still has farther to fall. And I don't see many people who are very excited or invigorated about Joe Biden. So that's let's see, that's fascinating. Let's see here. I hate American politics. I wish it was televised on Comedy Central. I'm trying to do the Comedy Central rendition right here. Right here. Nah, man, look. Politics shouldn't be this crazy. Is this strange for me to say that people take politics too seriously? It's not that. People are too polarized. That's the problem. So, oh my goodness, excuse me. So, what we have here is not necessarily, a problem with politics existing. Politics, existing is a good thing, and politics will it'll just continue to exist. What is dangerous though is two things, right? The polarization, intense polarization, which makes people hate each other. And then we have this cultural shift towards supporting violence, which I think is pretty bad. I've talked about this multiple times. Go watch my video apologizing to DJ LL if you want to see me break down this a little bit more. But when it comes to the political side of things, people are just going ham at each other, and they think that it's fine. Now, granted, a lot of this has been due to sort of rhetoric from the mainstream media that has sort of validated a lot of violent tendencies, right? Violence is the voice of the unheard, or like, it's fine because they're angry, or civil rights, for the sake of justice, we must trash the target. Not a big fan of any of that rhetoric, and I think that leads to kind of where we're at today, right? Where we have Democrats here who've been sort of fear-mongered by MSNBC to think oh, I can't go to the shopping mall without feeling like we're gonna get killed. I feel endangered at my church. Ooh, part of that is just the mainstream media kind of fueling this fear, which then kind of leads to behaviors that then perpetuates more fear in other people. It just becomes this big old cycle. Politics should not be as contentious as it is. It should be something that people can civically discuss, participate in, and sort of still be friends with each other despite disagreeing. So, it's kind of crazy the way that politics has transformed over time. You watched my reaction to the first ever televised presidential debate. We had, these candidates profusely praising each other and giving each other big ups, being like, yo, I know that you're not trying to tear down the country. We just have different visions for what that looks like, and we disagree on what will actually be effective.
Official Mike
where is that rhetoric? Where is that rhetoric today?
Americans not going to church.
Thoughts on Americans not going to church? I mean, it's not surprising, since we've had the death of God, America's been on this moral downward spiral. So it's not surprising at all that Americans aren't going to church. I think, of course, that it's a bad thing. You guys know me, that I'm a Christian. Another thing, too, is that it's hard to have a moral nation without a moral grounding and a moral center. That's what we've been trying to do, and it just hasn't been working. And I think that's why you see things like this violence, right? Strict moral codes dictate whether or not violence is okay, right? But sliding ones, or wins that are based on feelings and not a specific moral code, kind of make you be like, well, I feel like being violent today, so I guess I'm gonna go do that. It's not okay. But when you have a society that sort of doesn't believe in a fixed, decided and true and accurate, universally true and accurate, compass of what's right and what's wrong, And even worse, you have the correct compass of what's right and wrong with the scriptures, with Christianity, with God's word. You throw that away, and then along with that, saying that there's no such thing as objective morality, which I think is kind of where our country is at. Americans not going to church is a symptom of that, unfortunately. Let's see here. We have Ron DeSantis here speaking, giving remarks after his
Official
projected win.
Mike said in the chat,
over these past 4 years, we've seen major challenges for the people of our state, for the citizens of the United States, and above all, for the cause of freedom. We saw freedom in our very way of life, and so many other jurisdictions in this country wither on the vine. Florida held the line. We chose facts over fear. We chose education over indoctrination.
That's fair. I can't complain about that too much. That's great.
Law and order over rioting and disorder. Florida was a refuge.
See, okay, hold on. One thing that's really interesting to take note in, one thing I find, the Democrat Party continually takes L's in, and they have never reversed course, is when it comes to crime and the economy. If the Democratic Party changed their policies on crime and the economy, I think they would win against the Republicans every time. Because from what I see, the Republicans win whenever people are mad at Democrats for messing up the economy and making crime worse. Like Democrats, nothing invigorates voters for the GOP
God
more than
like
Democrats doing a bad job, which I think is unfortunate. And I think that there's some messaging that I think that the GOP could get a little bit properly honed in. But it's nice, though, that he's hitting on all these things the Democrats have failed at, because this is a winning strategy.
We chose law and order over rioting and disorder. Florida was a refuge of sanity when the world went mad. We stood
as the
true. Citadel of freedom,
and that's
for
where
people
a lot of people went
this
there.
Country and indeed across the world. We faced attacks. We took the hits. We weathered the storms, but we stood our ground. We did not back down. We had the conviction to guide us, and we had the courage to lead. We made promises.
The camera lady.
We
I was not
made
expecting that.
promises to the people of Florida, and we have delivered on those promises.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that voters like better than a politician who keeps their
today,
promises.
After 4 years, the people have delivered their verdict. Freedom is here to stay.
What do you know? What can you say? This is kind of a referendum on the whole GOP platform, to be honest. Although it should not be taken for granted at all that he only got 60% of the vote.
Now, thanks to the overwhelming support of the people of Florida, we not only won election, we have rewritten the political map. Thank you for honoring us with a win for the ages.
Very nice, very nice. Hold on, I want to read some of these chats because they look kind of interesting. Okay, official Mike. I love Christianity because God left me. I was blinded for 20 plus years. Plus, I found it culty. God was never there for me, like the father who went to get the milk. A couple things on these points here. First of all, I don't know if it's fair. I mean, it'd be interesting to see why you're saying here that God left you, because typically what people mean when they say this is that things weren't going my way, and I'm being reductionist. I admit I'm being reductionist because I am trying to be quick with the coverage here, but kind of on a very, very basic and blunt level, a lot of that rhetoric comes out of people who are like, I was trying to follow God, but things didn't go my way. So, like, bro, what's the deal? Now I can see why, you cited, who was it? Kenneth Copeland earlier, right? His kind of rhetoric is going to lead you to have that sort of mentality. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go play you guys this video. I'm going to play you this video that that literally speaks to this exact thing.
But that's what happened with me. If you found home with him, great.
This literally breaks down. This I recorded just before, like, just while my throat was getting all messed up. So you're not going to be able to hear me too well in this video, but this kind of literally addresses the mindset that sort of, it sounds like, you might be in. It definitely is a byproduct of the theology of, like, Kenneth Copeland and other people like that. And hey, would you look at that? He's wearing the same hoodie that I am.
Hey, 90 beat back once again. In this
my voice sounds so bad in this. Oh my goodness.
Said in the chat.
Voice is kind of off.
I live in Wisconsin.
So I'm not gonna be able to stream.
Hope Mandela Barnes won the Senate election for Wisconsin.
And if my voice sounds weird or whatever,
said in the chat.
That's why.
I mean, I never followed him, Kenneth Copeland,
I did want to
but
talk
it's
really
more
quickly
about when my mom died.
About the whole Kanye situation, where he kind of went off, made a song with a game, and talked about how he wants to, I don't know, beat up Pete Davidson, while out, kind of like go off on his children, everything. This is what the prosperity gospel gets you, because this dude,
Kanye, right?
He was hanging out with all the Hillsong people, a lot of the same people that I believe Justin Bieber was hanging out with. And they have shaky theology. They have a lot of prosperity theology, which is not the best. A lot of the theological ideology, which says, if you pray enough, if you have enough faith or whatever, then God will make you happy. God will make you rich. This and that, and this whole other thing. Apparently Kanye West bought this hook, line, and sinker. But then Kim Kardashian divorced him, and he was like, oh, well, I mean, God's going to bring us back together, yada, yada.
Now, I'm not even joking. Ye literally said that. He's been on record saying that. So, now we see what happens.
A lot of Christians were out here like, I don't know, bro. And you know what?
We were.
Well, I don't know about now. I think Pete Davidson might be on the Miley Cyrus now. But then Kim starts dating and hanging out with Pete Davidson.
Mike.
And that just
said
broke my man.
Never had a Christian stronghold in my house.
Because it really contradicted his really unwavering belief that
they pressured us to find wives.
He was going to end up like Kim was just going to go right back to Kanye. And I think unfortunately that's just what prosperity theology tends to do to people. It makes people be like, oh yeah, everything's going to be Gucci because I'm praying, yo. And then when things aren't going well, then you're going to be like, well, what? It's because who are you going to turn to? The very God who you were doing all this stuff for,
ism.
Because he was going to do things that would
God's
give you
gonna
what
bring
you
us back together.
Look, ISM, it's over. I'm moving on. Okay, I'm sorry. I know y'all were fans, but that time is come and gone. Okay, all right.
Wanted in the first place?
Official Mike.
And so the whole theology's whack. And one might be like, oh yeah, well, Justin Bieber's holding to the same theology, and he's doing just fine. He's having a good time. He's really gotten his life straight. Well, I mean, he's not going through a divorce. See, prosperity gospel's all fine and dandy until the tough times hit you, and then you have nowhere left to turn, because the only reason you were turning is to make sure that the times are good. If the times are bad, then it's like, well, I don't know. So, I don't know. It's a lot better just to hold to more standard, biblical Christianity. And I'm kind of losing energy in that video, but my point in that whole video was that you're always
Jesus is my Lord and Savior.
If you're a Christian, if you are a Christian and you're following Jesus just so that you can get good things out of life, when bad things happen, you're gonna leave, right? So Mike here was saying, let's see, where was it that you said that they never followed Kenneth Copeland. It's more about when my mom died. Exactly. This kind of goes to what I was talking about in this video, where it's like, what happens when the tough time comes? What happens when there's like the divorce or whatever? What happens when, you lose the parents? If the whole reason that you were a Christian to begin with was to get earthly blessings out of God, and then something bad happens and you're like, well, I'm not getting what I promised, I'm out. Like, that's a natural reaction, but it comes out of a gross misunderstanding of who God is and what his purpose is. And what is
what's going on with Jesus?
What his purpose is for your life, God didn't say in his Bible, I'm going to make everybody healthy, wealthy, and wise on earth.
Said in the chat.
No, nobody.
I voted too.
That's not in the Bible, right? God never said that your mom will never die. That's not in the scriptures. So, God is not. If you're following God, it shouldn't be the type of God who you can only follow so long as your mom is alive. No. Right? Because there's a lot more to the scriptures than, being with the person that you want to be with, than your parents being alive, than, being rich and famous, successful at your job. But like the gospel is like a lot more than that. So, but a lot of this comes from like faulty teachings on who God is too. So I mean, there's a lot of that goes into, it goes into that. I would recommend Mike look into some more. I don't know. You want to try to find some healthy churches or something like that. Maybe look at some interesting internet content by Christians who look at things with a more healthy perspective, rather than giving you this false promise that God's going to give you whatever just because you pray for it.
Official
like, no.
Mike said in the chat.
There's more to it like Ruslan, I think, is a really great resource for this. Wretched Radio is great. There's also who's the third person that I was gonna cite. What do you meme? What do you meme is really good.
Official Mike.
Also, Young Don
said in the chat.
Young Don is excellent, although he mostly reacts to memes and stuff. Avoiding religion to play. Okay, I mean, granted, I cannot convert you, right? That is something that God will have to do in your heart. So it's not, it's not like something that I can be like, oh yeah, no, just watch this video and you're set, you're good, and you'll be saved, right? But I think it is really unfortunate that we have so many people. Like, it sounds like you've been duped into a false description of who God is, and that kind of led you to lose faith. It's so frustrating to me to see people misrepresent God and describe him as something that he's not, because that inevitably does cause people to like lose faith. It's just like man, I'm not getting what I paid for. I mean, no, you're not getting what you paid for because you got approached by a scam artist, right? Like people need like the real thing. Let's see, what's going on with Jesus? Man, he's chilling. He's hanging in over in heaven. He's actually preparing a better place for us. That's what he's doing. What's up, Lennox?
Let's see. I sometimes voted too. Nice. Very good. You know, it's always great when people vote, even if, you know, I don't like agree with them. Like that's kind of what this country's all about to a certain extent. Mike says there's more to it than that, but I can't mention it to extent. Yeah, that's fine. It's fine. I says I love reading the Bible. That's dope. That's awesome. I mean, you're not going to get better theology anywhere else than from the Bible.
Official Mike said in the chat.
Thanks for trying to bring me back.
Thanks for trying to bring me back, but I have zero interest in returning.
Yeah, no, I mean, of course, like I definitely, one thing about my streams that I always want to do is, as much as possible, bring up the truth, be accurate, and sort of, you know, cut down on any misconceptions that might be out there. You know, I'm doing election coverage, political coverage, but also when it comes to Christianity, because it frustrates me to no end to see God and Jesus misrepresented, because it just does people like such a disservice. So if something comes up like that, then I do want to like be like, no, Jesus is not here just to make you healthy, wealthy, and wise. You know, if you're sick, it's not because you have a lack of faith. Like, no. None of this is scriptural at all. But I mean, yeah, it's at the end of the day, it is, you know, something that you would have to choose whether or not to believe in him. I can't make you do that. I can just kind of say my piece. Now, we're having a family, like my family, we're doing a family breakdown of the election, basically an election, a red wave watch party.
No Newbie is a great streamer.
And let me see. Man, they changed the site. They had their predictions. I wanted to see their predictions. But in any case, before we leave, you know, I do want to point you guys to the sites that I've been viewing so that you guys can see what I've been taking a look at. I'm about to read through this. I've been taking a look at these pages from ABC News. These are election maps. So we have the Senate races, we have the House races, and we have the governor's races. Now, if you've been hearing a lot of news about certain races, GOP versus Democrat, they're probably going to be the governor's races. You know, you got Ron DeSantis, you've got Carrie Lake, you know, you've got Mark DeWine, who just won over there. Let's see, Kristi Noem, who won over there. So, you know, a lot of these races you're going to be seeing you know, bigger names here. You'll probably see some of them here as well. You know, the Fetterman-Oz race, very tight. Fetterman's winning by literally 5% with 52% of the votes reporting. Kind of got wrapped into more intense coverage while breaking this down.
On Google
but
looking at the
anyways,
updates.
Those sites have been really great if you're just looking for results. If you want things in a more linear timeline, which I find to be really interesting, NBC News has this great feed here, where as things happen, they update this feed. So, you know, we see just right here, you know, in case you guys are like wondering, oh, I wonder what happened to the Georgia Senate race. So it turns out this race is too close to call right now. Same thing with Wisconsin. But then as NBC does exit polls, you can see those too. So, for instance, you see like white men have the highest support of, you know, the Florida governor DeSantis. Surprising. But then we also see some other really interesting exit polls, such as this one here. NBC News exit poll, half of voters say values on sexuality and gender are changing for the worse. An entire breakdown about, you know, how different generations are feeling about sexuality right now, at least when it comes to voters. All sorts of interesting things are in that feed as well. And lastly, I'm going to read through this. This is 538. I've been following them kind of closely because out of all the mainstream media, you know, some people are pretty biased when it comes to their polls. 538, I think, takes a more analytical and statistical approach to everything. So I do think that they tend to be a little bit more accurate. They usually kind of have the best takes out of any mainstream news media source you'd find, especially, you know, ones that lean left. I mean, 538 is a collaboration between ESPN and ABC. But let's take a look at this. Republicans lead in the House so far with 188 seats to Democrats' 124 seats. The current balance in power of the House, the number of seats each party will control based on the election results as of 10:14 p.m. Eastern Time. So right now, we're seeing basically a dead heat. Almost like the current balance of power is like basically 50. Oh, my little like thing here I used to control the scenes fell. 50, almost 50-50. The Democrats have a slight edge, but we're seeing the GOP kind of getting closer to that majority line than the Democrats. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Now, the current balance of power in the Senate was 50-50. We'll see how that goes. I think that's expected to turn to the GOP side. So that'd be interesting to see. If you guys want me to, let me know in the chat if you guys want me to send you all these links so you can track all the information for yourself. Also, let me know if you're interested in more stuff about Christianity. Thank you, Mike, for sending in that question. I appreciate it. I like talking about Christianity on my streams. I have a whole Christianity section in my Discord. It's in the link for that. It's in the description below. If you want to talk about Christianity, ask me questions about Christianity, you can do that in there. If you want to ask me questions about Christianity in my streams, I'm happy to talk about Christianity as well. Great topic. So many things to discuss and break down when it comes to Christianity and religion as a whole, as well as how that interacts with society. It's very interesting. But yeah, I'm gonna close up the stream. I'm gonna put in all these links into the Discord, and I'm gonna join our Jubilant family gathering as we follow everything that's happening with the, hopefully, we'll see, potential red wave. It's looking like there actually aren't too many election shenanigans either, so I think that's also kind of something to celebrate. We have a couple things going on, but it's it's not nearly as bad as what we've seen in previous elections, so I think that's wonderful, very exciting. But yeah, that's all I got. We have polls closed in the West Coast. I'm gonna go watch those West Coast results with my family. Peace out, y'all. I should play the video that I introed here because I think it's somewhat funny. Give me one moment here. I'm going to cue that up. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I will see you all later.
Performed by Quavo from the Migos. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? The dawn is so early. What's so proudly we at the twilight last gleaming. Look at the ice on burn stripes and bright stars through the perilous lights. All around, but we was so gallantly streaming, so gallantly, and the rockets, red glare, the bomb bursting, in air, gave proof, they gave it the proof, through the night, that a flag was still there. No way, no, all say does that star spangled banner away, or the land of the free and the home of the brave. Let's give it another round of applause for Quavo singing the national anthem.